What did you want to be when you were a child? This was the kind of question that I was asked all the time. I grew up in India. It was like a common question. Now I realize it's a common question for a lot of the cultures. Hey, what will you be when you grow up? What do you want to be? And to me, and just give me 1 second because I forgot my, here, sorry. So when this question came up to me, I always spoke with conviction that I want to be a DIG. Like as a little kid, I would tell everybody, I want to be a DIG. I later learned that what that meant was I wanted to be a Deputy Inspector General. What I really wanted to be was this person. So there was only one TV channel and this TV show called Udan, which literally means flight, showed on TV. And it started with a little girl setting a bird off the cage, setting it free, and then it showed how progressively she became an IPS officer, an Indian Police Service officer. While that dream did not materialize, in 2007, I moved to the United States and I decided to become a hairstylist. And for about 4 years, that's all I did. I was cutting hair for 4 years and being a hairstylist until one day, I was cutting hair for this gentleman. We had a great conversation, and he ended up recommending this book called Cyber War. I read this book. This book changed my life. So I decided to go to school for cybersecurity, network security. As soon as I started to go to school, I started to notice an oddity. I was the only female in most of my classes. And fast forward, while I have become a tech executive, this oddity I still notice. In fact, on 28th of August, somebody sent this tweet, Nancy, who actually works for Google. She sent this tweet, hey, is there any hijabi executive or is this just a dream? So I replied, I exist. Funny thing, overnight, it was so shocking to Twitterverse that I gained 20% more followers. Now, as an executive, I'm starting to observe that this oddity, this diversity issue, is bleeding into our emerging technologies. What does that look like? But before we talk about these emerging technologies, I want to talk about AI, virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality. These are the emerging technologies, right? So what is an AI? A lot of the people, when we talk about AI, think that, oh, there is this Terminator-like robot that's going to annihilate the humanity, and that's the way AI goes. However, the truth is, there is 3 types of AI. There is the artificial narrow intelligence that focuses on a certain set of parameters with a specific context and carries out a very narrow task, such as natural language processing. There is the artificial general intelligence, which we are sort of progressing towards using these baseline, where AI would be indistinguishable from humans. And then there is the artificial superintelligence, which we all fear, which will have these cognitive abilities that potentially will supersede humans. And that's what everybody worries about. So while that may or may not be true, we do need to care about building the ANI using machine learning. And why? Because in computer science, there's a principle. It's called the sort of like a law of computer science, garbage in, garbage out. Whatever input you provide, you are going to get a corresponding output. So this is also applicable, very much so, in machine learning. What that means is, in August 2019, just about last month, at Association of Computational Linguists in Italy, they performed a study. They fed this machine learning unsupervised algorithm 3.5 million books starting from 1900 to 2008. The effort was to try to understand the word of choices between male and female in our literature. What they noticed is, as you can see, is when in literature, women were described with positive adjectives, only they were corresponding to their beauty, their physicality, whereas when it came to male, it was all about their personality. It was all about their qualities. So what this AI concluded is this: women are beautiful and sexy, and men are rational and brave. Let's segue to another emerging technology, which is virtual reality. I love this picture. This is a friend of mine, Carolyn Wong. She paid me a visit at my previous workplace. Virtual reality is essentially using this head-mounted display. This is a software-generated artificial digital environment. And there are other technologies, such as augmented reality. You guys are very familiar with it. Snapchat filters, the Instagram filters. This is all overlaying these digital software on top of our reality. And then there's mixed reality, where you can actually manipulate environment, real-world environment, using these softwares, such as using a head-mounted display to operate a forklift. There is an interesting piece where all of the virtual reality, augmented reality, now so many communities are beginning to congregate in these environments, and XR, as we call these virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, and XR domain, this is starting to change lives. In fact, you would at some point no longer have to travel. You could potentially use goggles or the software environment to experience what it feels like to be in Paris, what it feels like to be in this room. With a very little effort, I could today create this entire environment and invite you over. In fact, I have done that several times, where I conducted security awareness training at the Taj Mahal. And people joined me from London and Germany and all of that. So essentially, this is changing lives, but this is also bringing risks. What about the data that these devices are collecting? Who is responsible for it? So I started to notice all of that. And I realized that there are implicit biases that are popping up in these technologies as well. So where do we go from here? We know that we have to address these pieces. And there are solutions. So look at this research. First, look at the first three pictures. This is a research conducted by University of Washington and University of Virginia in May 2019. The three pictures, they use this data set, which already indicated the activity cooking is 33% more likely to be associated with female role. And then when they fed this to the artificial intelligence algorithm, look at the fourth picture, it actually amplified the bias by 68%. So the disparity increased 68%. So what they did is they came up with this corporal level constraint that they interjected. They're calling it RBA factor, reducing bias amplification, and came up with this novel constraint interference framework. When they did that, the bias reduced by 25%. And a man shows up in the kitchen. So the solutions do exist. But I want to tell you what I'm doing about this. I'm the founder of XR Safety Initiative. It's a nonprofit that I started in April 2019, advocating for exactly this, conducting research. We have discovered novel cyber attacks in virtual reality. And I have gone around, opened up dialogue with global organizations such as EU Commission and National Cybersecurity Alliance. We dedicated an entire pillar, Ready Hacker One, to advocate and to spread awareness around what are these risks that we must anticipate. And I'm also a board of director of another nonprofit organization called Minorities in Cybersecurity, trying to build minority leadership in cybersecurity space. And fairly recently, I started advising Wallarm. It's a security company that uses artificial intelligence to solve cybersecurity challenges. So all that is great. But of course, as I am doing this, or as I did that, I faced setbacks. In my past, I failed interviews with OpenAI, I failed interview with NSA, I failed interview with SpaceX. Actually, SpaceX ghosted me, and a few other companies too. But the biggest setback for me was when I realized I was advocating for some of the cybersecurity laws at my former employer, and they terminated me. In March 2019, I was terminated by my former employer on the day that I was receiving an award for being top 40 under 40 business executive for my work towards tech community. On this day, I went through the feelings of humiliation and rejection. And it was only my 5th award for contributing to the community. But I did not stand alone. On that day, my former boss, who documented the exact same cybersecurity potential concerns and anti-money laundering related violations concerns, he stood by me. His name is Scott Butler, and this is what a true ally looks like. He has since then tried to leave the position, but he was retained in a board of director capacity. I was terminated. He told me that day, "Kavya, I am so proud of you." So, the moral of the story is, when you're different and you advocate for something you believe is the right thing, you're going to face opposition. On that day, you're going to need allies. And another moral is, we are at this crossroads of this technology that we can no longer afford to look away. We have to stand up. We have to stand together. Here's what I want you to do. Here's what you can remember. If you're not a minority, then you too can make a difference by being a true ally. If you're a writer, write about their story. Write about the story of the people who really need it. And if you're not, give them a voice. Give them a stage. And if you're too ashamed to come stand with them or talk about them, give them a call. Give them a hug. And if you are a minority, this is the very simple thing that I have been doing for past 6 months. And if I may be just bold to ask you guys to stand up with me. It's a very simple thing that I do. I stand in front of the mirror when I have weak moments, and I hold my fist to my heart, and I say, I am strong. Thank you.